Well, it's pretty wild stuff happening in crypto right now with Trump back in the White House.
Yeah, yeah.
It's March 5th, 2025. And between the tariff threats and everybody talking about this possible U.S. crypto strategic reserve,
Yeah,
I think we have a lot to cover today.
absolutely. It's really fascinating to see how these seemingly totally separate worlds are kind of colliding right now.
Yeah.
Global trade, presidential politics, and the future of finance. Like we're seeing traditional market dynamics play out, but in the crypto space, but with a uniquely digital twist to it all.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Let's start with that Bitcoin sell-off that TradingView News was reporting on.
Okay.
A 15% drop since February 3rd when the tariffs were announced. That's pretty significant.
Yeah.
Especially, considering Bitcoin is usually thought of as a safe haven asset. What do you make of all this?
It seems like this time around, at least, Bitcoin is behaving more like a risk asset. It's almost mirroring the Nasdaq's movements. Yeah, and we're seeing a correlation of 0.91.
Wow.
Which is incredibly high. And this suggests that investors might be losing confidence in Bitcoin's ability to hedge against economic uncertainty, Like
Right.
Trump's policies, which can be a little unpredictable, could definitely be a factor in this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a really good point. We have seen this safe haven status kind of fluctuate before, haven't we?
Yeah.
Back in 2019, during the trade war with China, Bitcoin actually surged because traders were using it to bypass capital controls.
Yeah, that's right. Capital controls are basically restrictions that governments place on moving money out of a country. And back then, Bitcoin was a way around those restrictions, so its value went up. But today, it seems investors are treating Bitcoin more like a tech stock, and it's sensitive to the same global anxieties that are affecting the Nasdaq.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And it's not just the correlation with the Nasdaq that's so interesting, is it? TradingView News also talked about how Bitcoin is reacting instantly to global news, even on weekends when the traditional markets are closed.
Exactly. And that's that 2047 nature of the crypto market makes it super sensitive to world events, but in real time. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like it creates this whole new level of complexity for investors to deal with.
For sure. Now, the Motley Fool article pointed out that traditional safe haven assets, like the euro, gold, the Japanese yen, they've actually all strengthened.
Okay.
So it's not like investors are fleeing risk assets altogether. It seems like they're just, treating Bitcoin differently this time around.
Yeah, it's definitely an anomaly that we need to keep our eye on.
Absolutely.
And as if the tariffs weren't enough to shake things up, we have Trump's announcement about a U.S. crypto strategic reserve to contend with, too.
Talk about a curveball, right? I mean, the concept of a strategic reserve is usually applied to things like oil, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. It's basically a stockpile held by a national government, just in case there's like an emergency or for strategic purposes, I guess. But applying this to cryptocurrency, that's a radical shift.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder how it will work in practice and what the real goals are here. The Motley Fool's article talks about some of the implications of this.
Yeah, they mentioned Bitcoin, XRP, and Solana being included in the reserve. But how much of the supply would the government even buy up? And for how long would they hold it? And then what kind of an impact would that have on the value of those currencies?
Those are all good questions. Imagine the U.S. government just buying up a huge chunk of Bitcoin.
Right.
It could really reduce its liquidity in the market, potentially leading to price manipulation or even just giving the government way too much control over the cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
It's a fascinating problem, isn't it?
Yeah.
On the one hand, you've got this potential for market manipulation and government overreach, right?
Right.
But then on the other hand, some people say that having the government involved could actually bring some stability to the crypto market and make it more legitimate.
Yeah, that's true. And we can't forget about the impact all this might have on the U.S. dollar, can we?
Yeah.
That Time article brought up some concerns about that.
Mm-hmm.
They compared the crypto reserve to a homeowner using their credit card to gamble, hoping to pay off their mortgage quicker.
It's an interesting way to put it, But it does highlight the risk here, you know? Like, what if this whole thing fails? Could it hurt the dollar's standing globally?
It's definitely possible. And then there's that question of how this whole thing will get funded.
Right.
I mean, how will this reserve be paid for?
Yeah.
Some people are saying it might come from taxpayer dollars, which could be a little controversial.
Yeah, and that's where a lot of the skepticism comes from, I think. But like Trump's cryptos are, David Sachs said, we really need to wait for all the details before we jump to any conclusions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Speaking of concrete details, it seems like everyone's really focused on this White House crypto summit that's happening on March 7th. Cointelegraph even has this list of people who are going to be there, and it really is like a who's who of the crypto world. You know,
Wow.
Michael Saylor, Brian Armstrong, Changpeng Zhao, Brad Garlinghouse, they're all going to be there.
It's a historic event. It really is, the first of its kind. And it's not just a roundtable discussion either. I mean, there's like an invite-only reception too.
Yeah,
So, it's got that extra layer of intrigue, right?
absolutely. Cointelegraph suggested that we can probably expect some big policy announcements, especially when it comes to the crypto strategic reserve. So what do you think we might hear?
Well, anyone's guess is as good as mine at this point.
Yeah.
But I'd imagine we'll get some clarification on how the reserve is structured, how it's going to be funded, the criteria for choosing the cryptocurrencies, all that. And maybe we'll even get some insights into the long-term vision for the reserve and how it all fits into the broader financial strategy.
Yeah, good point. It's also worth mentioning that Trump's Commerce Secretary, Howard Lutnick, hinted that Bitcoin might get special treatment in all this. According to Cointelegraph, he said that President Trump's thinking about a Bitcoin strategic reserve, but the model for how other cryptocurrencies will be handled will be revealed at the summit.
That is interesting. I mean, it just adds another layer of complexity to this whole thing, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Why would they just pick out Bitcoin like that? I mean, is it just because it's the most established cryptocurrency, or is there something else going on here? Right.
It's all speculation at this point. But it's definitely making people talk. And it's creating a lot of uncertainty in the market. We've got the tariffs creating volatility, this potential for the government to come in and buy a lot of crypto, and then there are all these unknowns about regulation. I mean, what does this all mean for the average crypto enthusiast?
It's a lot to process for sure.
Yeah?
But I think, like always in the crypto world, we have to avoid overreacting. I mean, this kind of volatility is normal. The important thing is to stay informed, do your research, and make sure you're making decisions that work for your own investment goals and risk tolerance. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure. And, it's not just the federal government that's thinking about a crypto reserve.
Right.
The Time article pointed out that it's becoming more popular at the state level, too. Like Oklahoma, Utah, and Arizona are all looking into it.
Yeah, and the Satoshi Action Fund, which is like a crypto advocacy group, is actually pushing for legislation in over 20 states. So, even if nothing concrete happens at that White House summit, this whole concept isn't going well.
It's almost like a domino effect, isn't it?
Yeah.
What started as this fringe idea is now something that's being taken seriously at like all levels of government. And if it keeps going like this, it could have a huge impact on the future of digital currencies.
Yeah, absolutely. It brings up some really fundamental questions about, what the government's role should be in a world that's supposed to be decentralized. And then there's the whole evolving relationship between traditional finance and this new digital landscape.
It's exciting and a little overwhelming at the same time. We could be watching the global financial system being completely reshaped.
It's a transformative time for sure, and that's why it's so interesting. When we're watching history happen, we don't know how it's all going to end.
This is what makes following crypto so interesting.
Yeah.
The constant evolution, how unpredictable it is. It's pretty amazing.
I agree. And as we go into these uncharted waters, I think we need to try to keep a balanced perspective.
Yeah.
It's just as important to understand the risks as it is to see the potential rewards.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
We have to be informed, analyze all this information that's coming at us, and make our own decisions.
And that's exactly what we try to do here.
Yeah.
Give you the information and insights you need to navigate all of this.
We're all in this together.
Yeah.
We'll keep breaking down all these developments as they happen and offer our analysis so you can understand what's going on in this exciting and sometimes really confusing crypto world.
It's kind of crazy to think how much the whole story around crypto has changed. I mean, it wasn't that long ago that people saw Bitcoin as this, this threat to traditional finance. And now governments are trying to use it for themselves. Yeah, it's a really interesting power dynamic that's developing. And like that Time article said, it's making some crypto people nervous. They're worried about the government getting too involved. I mean, cryptocurrencies were designed to be like the opposite of that, right? Decentralized.
Right, exactly. The whole idea of decentralization is like at the core of the crypto movement. And it's not just about, who's in control. It's also about about making sure crypto isn't used for the wrong reasons.
Absolutely. That Time article also talked about concerns about scams and insider trading. Like they mentioned this trader who bet big on Bitcoin right before Trump made that announcement and then boom, cashed out with a huge profit. That lack of transparency just makes you wonder if things are really fair and if everyone's getting the same information.
Yeah, it's almost like we're going into this weird new world where, like, the Wild West of crypto is running headfirst into government regulation. The question is, how are these two forces going to, work together?
That's the million-dollar question. I mean, maybe the White House Crypto Summit will give us some answers, but I have a feeling this is just the start of a much bigger, more complicated conversation.
And it's a conversation that's happening all over the world, isn't it? It's not just the U.S. that's trying to figure all this stuff out. Other countries are coming up with their own ways to, like, regulate and integrate cryptocurrency.
Exactly. What we're seeing is a total shift in how we think about money, finance, and the role technology plays in shaping the future of our economy.
It's pretty exciting and pretty volatile time to be following this space, that's for sure. But we'll be here to break it all down for you as it happens. Thanks for joining us on this look at what's happening in the crypto world.
It's been great talking about all this with you. Just remember, this is all constantly changing. Stay informed, think critically about the information you see, and make decisions that are right for you and your financial goals.
Hit subscribe and turn on those notifications so you don't miss our analysis as this story develops. We'll see you next time.